Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Live with Laura. I am the Akashic therapist, and I guide women to access their inner power to create their own paths toward wellness. I'm here today with Nick Pereira. He is a motivational strategist, a yogi, and a speaker, and has been a very inspirational coach to me over the past year or so. So I wanted to have him on and have him share a little bit about his journey. But before I do that, I am going to pull a name because, as you know, I was offering free Akashic sessions to people who would share out Live with Laura's each Monday. So I'm going to pull a name from there before we move on so I don't forget at the end of the show. And the person who won the free Akashic session is Ilona Ruka. So I will tag you and shoot you a private message. Congratulations, and thank you so much for sharing out. And if you guys would take a minute to send us some likes and some hearts and share this out as well for anybody who might need to hear this message today, we would greatly appreciate it. So Nick, I am going to turn this over to you. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I just wanted to get an idea from you, if you could share with the audience, as to what your journey's been like up to this point and kind of how you got to the point you are now.
Yeah, it's an interesting time that we're recording this because I'm shifting and transitioning. So the way that people have got to know me over the last 5 years is as Coach Nick, helping spiritually based entrepreneurs generate sales. And my background is in entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 17 years old. And it's funny that I look, I'm a young guy from Toronto, big city. And I wanted everything most young guys in big cities want, fame, money, girls, right? Like basically, if I could make my life a rap video, I was like, this is awesome, right? So that was my goal in life, to be like, and I actually, I don't know how many people know this about me, but I actually pursued rapping in my early 20s as a career, and I was able to, release a record and do some cool stuff. So literally, I was trying to make my life a rap video. The problem with that was that I'm not a very good rapper, so that was the first problem, and it wasn't really congruent with who I am. I think that as I learned, we always know that the world is trying to tell us who we should be and what's important to us and what's not important to us, and these are one of the big lessons that I've learned along the way and continue to learn. And so I started off with entrepreneurship, and my inspiration, or my motivation, I should say, for being an entrepreneur was, again, to make my life like a rap video. But it was interesting. I started going to all these entrepreneurship seminars and these big events where I started learning, from these motivational speakers and these business strategists, and all of them talked about this inner game to business, this inner game to life. And while I would go to these business seminars, I ended up leaving crying and be like, oh, I'm a horrible person, or, I need to work on myself, right? I was like, geez, I thought I was coming to learn here how to make more money. And next thing you know, I'm, calling my father and being like, I love you, Dad. And, right, these type of things. And, and of course I ended up making more money and having success in business. So it was like, so it really, I really felt a lot of appreciation for the process. There was something though for myself that was still missing within the personal development world, and I couldn't tell what it was. I was like, there's something, I don't know what it is, but it's like something's still missing. I don't know what it is. I don't know what that piece of the puzzle is. And that's, what really opened me up to spirituality, right? So, well, what is that piece of the puzzle that's missing? And what I've come to learn is that piece of the puzzle that was missing was that I was ultimately missing my relationship with the divine, right? Missing my relationship with the part of me and the part of our universe and world that's eternal, that is permanent. So no matter how much business success, no matter how much, I could try to make my life look like a rap video. And believe me, some nights I accomplished it, right? You would have been like, oh, wow, that was I actually felt really empty in it, and I couldn't tell why. I was like, this is supposed to be making me happy, and it really wasn't. So slowly and surely, I started studying different forms of spirituality. I've got a Christian background, so I didn't go there first because I had a negative experience with the Catholic setting. I found that my questions weren't getting answered there. So I started gravitating towards Buddhism. Buddhism led me to, and I was just exploring shamanism, Reiki. I was exploring all these, the Akashic records. I was exploring modalities. And eventually I found my path in the yogic path, particularly the path of bhakti yoga. So within the yoga umbrella, there are different schools of yoga. Particularly, I found my home in bhakti yoga. Bhakti means devotion and yoga means union. So creating union with God, with the divine through a devotional heart. And the main practice that we use is mantras. And so I became an initiated member of the Hare Krishna or Bhakti Yoga order last year, almost to the year to date, recording this video. So that's why you'll see my name is now Nakula Das. Nakula Das was given to me by my spiritual master, Bhakti Marj Swami. And I am now teaching happiness through yogic philosophy and showing people how to live a simple life. Mahatma Gandhi had a quote that our spiritual master in the Hare Krishna order, Srila Prabhupada, adopted, and I've adopted in my own life, which is simple living, high thinking. How do we get back to simple living, natural living? And how do we use the tools and technologies of today to simplify our life? And how do we develop high thinking or high consciousness, high awareness? And that's my life's mission, is to essentially inspire people to find their happiness by finding spiritual life.
I love that. There's a couple things about that kind of strike a chord with me. One is just the purpose of this show in general, which is to really expose people who are seeking, who are at that point where they don't know where to start, right? And this world can seem so big. Like you said, you try on all these different spiritual hats or, ways of healing or alternative lifestyles and trying to figure out what works for you. And so being able to expose people to what are the options out there and what do they look like in this 3D form, right? Like, how does this present in our reality? So I love that you shared that you were seeking too. You're at this point now where you kind of know your center and you know what you want in the direction you're going, but that this was a process for you as well. It was a journey. It was a path, and honoring that path. And the other piece that I love is there's two things that I have primarily learned from you that you just mentioned that came up in what you were saying. One is discipline, right? And not just, which I need. So thank you.
Don't we all?
It's not just discipline in, okay, I'm going to be task oriented and get all my stuff done in the most efficient way possible, but discipline within myself, right? That inner game you're talking about. And the second thing is simplicity, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be easy. There can be a flow to it if you're working with the energy of the universe. And so that quote is really, falling into line here with what I've learned from you already.
Beautiful. Well, it's funny. Discipline is a scary word because when we think discipline, sometimes what comes up for a lot of people, I know it came up for me earlier in my journey, was restriction, right? Why do I have to? I thought spirituality was about doing what I want, whenever I want, right? And just, and it actually is, but you will only do what you want whenever you want if you have the discipline to do what you want. And it's very practical. Let's think about most people. If you ask most people, do you want to eat healthy? I mean, most people are going to say yes. So what you actually want is to eat healthy. But, there's all these temptations, you've got like all the sweets and all the processed foods and that play to your senses. Yeah. So when I talk about happiness, the first thing that I share with people is you have to distinguish between what is pleasure and what is actual happiness. And happiness can be defined more as like fulfillment. So there's pleasure and then there's fulfillment. Both can bring some happiness. There's happiness in pleasure, no doubt. Yeah. There's happiness in fulfillment. What you'll find is that the happiness found in pleasure is fleeting. You always need more. You're never content. You're never satisfied.
Yeah.
The happiness found in fulfillment is eternal. It is always with you. At the end of the day, you're content. You're not hankering. Pleasure, seeking pleasure, there's always an emptiness, always a hankering. I have to do more. I have to have more. I'm not good enough yet. When my bank account says this amount, then I'm happy. When my weight is this, then I'm happy. When my mother accepts me fully, then I'm happy, right? Whatever it is that you're searching for. That if you have that hankering, which 99% of us have, you have to know that you're not seeking fulfillment. You're seeking some pleasure, sense pleasure, pleasure of the body and mind. So the false ego and the body, they're one. And they're always the pleasure is like a multi-headed snake that is always like, it's never satisfied. It's always looking to consume. And it's multi-headed because it has once you satisfy one, let's say the tongue, I got to have some sugar. I got to have some sweet. I got to, whatever you got. I got to have my caffeine and smoke in the morning or whatever it is, whatever your thing is. Okay. And look, I ain't no saint, for me, it was smoking dope. I smoked dope for about 10, 12 years of my life. Like, I'm not talking, I smoked a joint once a week. I mean, get up in the morning, hit out the bong, remember rap video, right? right. That's right. Roll out of, before I'm even bed, it was like, hit out the bong and then go to work. And I used to work at a bar. So I used to I used to work at Eastside Mario's, and I would go to work and I would already be high. It's 10 a.m. and I was the bartender. So, when nobody was looking, nothing wrong with a little, a little something in the morning, right? Thinking that I'm living the life. Like, how awesome is this, right? But how, you see, our spiritual master would often say, what tastes sweet at the beginning turns to poison later on. And what tastes like poison in the beginning turns to sweetness later on. So the smoking and the drinking and that lifestyle was sweet at the beginning, but then over time, my belly was growing, my whole body was swollen, right? Yeah. I had no energy, no motivation, started becoming very angry. You see, it turned to poison later on because I was poisoning myself. Spiritual life often tastes like poison at the beginning because it requires some discipline. But that's what it means to become a disciple. When someone says, I'm a disciple of, what they're saying is, I've taken up a discipline. We need some discipline in our life, because when we have discipline, then we can do what we actually want. And what happens is, in the process, we end up moving from pleasure seeking, false attachment, to real attachment. So often there's this in the spiritual world, you have to become detached. Well, how do you become detached? By attaching yourself to what is real or permanent, and that is fulfillment. So you become unattached to the unreal world, pleasure, Maya, illusion, and attached to the real world, the spiritual world, which is loving, full of fulfillment, bhakti, devotional, right? It's a very active life. Another misconception about spiritual life is that you think you're just going to sit there and meditate all day long. No, you're going to engage yourself in service. You're going to help the community. You're going to become so valuable. And actually, that's where everything you want is found. See, the more value you become to people around you, There will be opportunities for wealth. There'll be opportunities for, everything that you actually want is found in spiritual alignment. So discipline is a scary word at first because it tastes like poison at the beginning, because you're actually weaning yourself off the material energies, the pleasure energies. And it's like going off a drug, right? You're like, oh, but
yeah,
but this is, I like watching 10 hours of Netflix every day. I like binge watching, whatever, this type of stuff. But, so when you first go off of it, it's going to be like a void. So you're going to feel this pull to want to go back. So you have to actually fill your time and consciousness with spiritual activities. And that's what Bhakti Yoga is. It is the science of spiritual activities to know God, to know the divine.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And what was the other thing you said? Simplicity.
Yeah, because what you're saying too, is something I tell my clients all the time is, approaching something with a desperate energy, any kind of desperate energy, whether we're talking about a relationship or money or sex or whatever you want to talk about, approaching anything with a desperate energy, it doesn't leave any room to breathe and is also going to equal the same level of passion on the other end, right? So, like when you're talking about it becomes poison, absolutely. You want to be very mindful of what energy am I coming from when I'm initiating action on whatever it is I think I want right now.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. I love how you said that, when I'm initiating action. So the word karma is very misunderstood. People think the word karma means what goes around comes around. That's kind of the popular definition of it. And no doubt that is true. But actually the word karma can be better translated into action. My action is my karma. What action I'm taking is my karma. So therefore, what I want to be is very conscious. I want to be engaged in spiritual action, right? And again, that's what Bhakti Yoga is all about. That's what I am teaching is what is spiritual activity? Service, mantras, yoga, anything done from a heart of service can be spiritual activity. So two people can be doing the same thing on the material level. So outwardly, on the outward level, it looks like we're doing the same thing. I'm cutting the grass and you're cutting the grass. Yep. Right? But if one person is doing it because they have this intention of service, they're cutting the grass to create some, some place or some sanctuary, or they're cutting the grass because they're doing it in the heart of a loving heart. And another person is cutting the grass strictly out of obligation. My wife asked me to cut the grass, so now I'm doing it, right? If not, I'm not going to get something later on. I'm just joking, right? So, right. This is actually the cutting the grass is material activity when you're wanting something selfish, some pleasure out of it, some material pleasure out of it. Cutting the grass out of devotion, because that is you're acting in service, is on the spiritual platform. The material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. Everything that happens in the material world happens, or the material platform happens on the spiritual platform. Except on the spiritual platform, the actions are absolute, meaning it's eternal happiness. There's always an expansion of it. It's always growing, expanding. But in the material platform, you'll find that you have little joy and then it fades away. So there's this cycle of action, reaction, karmic reactions. Real spiritual life is about neutralizing those karmic reactions.
I love that. And it's this, you're talking about this like return to permanence is really what we're doing by taking action. And that's our karma. We're showing this consistency and reliability to ourselves that is just a mirror of the spiritual world. So as we are consistent and reliable and disciplined with that, we are going to also make this state that we're creating more permanent in alignment with spirit, right?
That's right. And all pleasure will be fulfilled by spiritual activity. So like someone says, oh, but I really like, I was talking to one, I did a webinar a couple of days ago, and this one lady, she's considering joining the community that I've just started called the Happy Yogis community, where I'm teaching all of these principles and how to engage in spiritual activity in your life. And she said, I don't want to give up caffeine. I don't want to give up caffeine. Right? I says, okay, oh, fine. You know what I mean? I'm not requiring anybody in that community to give up anything. When you go deeper into the yogic process, you may take to some principles, but that'll be between you and your guru, your disciple, because you'll become a disciple and you'll take up a discipline willingly, right? I don't think that anybody should forcefully take up anything, but allow the process to happen, right? Allow the process, just start engaging in the knowledge. Knowledge is light, and light kills darkness. Darkness is ignorance. Now, when I say ignorance, I'm not talking about material knowledge. Material knowledge is what people are chalking up to as intelligence. Like they're like, oh, I can memorize better than you. Memorization is definitely good, and memorization leads to intelligence for sure. But what I'm talking about is discernment, like spiritual knowledge, right? What are the activities I want to be engaged in? How do I go about my everyday life? Like the reality is 99.9% of us are not going to become monks. We're not going to become priests. We're going to live in family life. We're going to have wife and kids, and we're going to have jobs and bills and, and all of these things. Nothing has to be given up. It just has to be dovetailed with spiritual consciousness. The activity just needs to be taken to the spiritual level, which is a shift in consciousness.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. So she said, I don't want to give up caffeine. So I said, fine, don't give up caffeine. If you can't give up caffeine right now, don't give it up. But what can you do? I said, because she was talking about, like in Ayurveda, we talk about the different, some of us are more fire, some of us are more air, some of us are more water, the different orientations our body has. And so she was talking about she's very fire. So I said, caffeine is going to make you more fiery. So naturally you'll have anger. Naturally you'll have frustration. Too much thinking, anger, frustration, too much fire in yourselves. You have to cool yourself down. I'm very fire element. So it's important. Like I eat lots of fruits, lots of vegetables. I stay away from spices. I stay away from caffeine, alcohol, drugs. All of that stuff is just going to, right? That's why I became so angry and frustrated, right? Because I didn't realize that my body was just over fiery, right? So what I was explaining to her is I said, just begin to move towards, so she said, well, can I drink iced coffee? I said, yes. That would be it would be a step towards at least keeping yourself cool. So do that. And then add water, add some more fruits and vegetables, and you'll be able to bring your body into balance, right? So ultimately, what you eventually want to do is totally get clean out of these stimulants. But the reality is, as we are right now in the world, 99% of the population, we are so addicted to material things and don't even realize it because it's so normal. It's so prevalent in our society that we are going to have to trust and wean ourselves off. And we don't have to give up anything at the beginning. We simply just have to, as you said, discipline, bring in some knowledge. And the way that you discipline yourself is through knowledge. Shows like this. Yeah. You're going to watch shows like this, plug in every week, get spiritual knowledge. The more you associate means to listen. The more you listen to spiritual knowledge, spiritual teachings, the more spiritualized, we'll say, you will become. Yeah. And one thing I want to give to people is, because I've explored a lot of different spiritual teachers and different aspects, it's like, how do you know who is legit and who is not? Well, you'll have to decide, okay? But I'll give you something to consider, okay? If you are truly advancing in spiritual life, your material attachments will be decreasing. Your seeking of pleasure, body pleasure, will be decreasing. You'll know within yourself, I don't really desire that coffee anymore. Or, you know what, I want to give up smoking. Or I don't really want that cigarette anymore. Or, you know what, I just don't feel like watching so much TV anymore. Or I'm not going to just scroll on social media 24/7, right? You'll feel your material attachments starting to decrease, and your desire for real love will increase. Like, you'll be like, I want love in my life.
Yeah.
Not relationship love, not Hollywood love. Like, love that's unconditional, love that and eventually you won't seek love. You will simply become it. And love isn't to one particular thing. Not like, love is so unbound that, like, love isn't like, oh, I show my husband love, but not my neighbor love. No, I show everybody and everything, even non-living objects. There will be this loving nature that begins to take over you. You don't have to go for it. It is your actual natural state.
Right. You're not really seeking anymore.
That's right. You just start becoming it.
Exactly.
And you bring that into all aspects of your life, your career, your work, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to give up. Like, people say, oh, do I have to become a monk? Do I have to, like, no. What you just need to do is become so engaged in your life in a loving energy. And that requires knowledge, real knowledge, right? And some discipline, or what's in yoga it's called sadhana. Sadhana means practice. It requires some practice, because you will have to wean yourself off of the material energies.
Well, and I think trusting that knowledge also comes from our intuition. As we get to know ourselves better and as we become more aligned, we're naturally going to be drawn to, you know what, that food doesn't make me feel good anymore. Or
That's
that
right.
practice doesn't make me feel good anymore. You know, it just doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't align with me. Or when I'm trying to decide, all right, I want a new coaching program, or I want to learn a different spiritual way, or what have you. And I'm wondering, who can I trust and which way can I go? I don't have to make that decision, because if I'm in alignment, I'm naturally going to feel it. You know, I mean, I remember when I was first going to work with Emily, your partner at the Akashic Academy, Emily Harrison. And I was like, okay, that was early on. And I was like, okay, who do I trust? Who out there is the real deal? Right. And, with her, my ego kept telling me, oh, you don't need this. This doesn't make sense. You don't need this. You're good. Like, you're figuring this out. You can figure this path out on your own. But I kept getting drawn to her, right? I kept getting those messages of, this is where you need to be. And obviously it was the right fit, but it's trying to discern the difference between the ego and what's really in alignment and kind of sitting well with who we are.
Yeah. What we're all searching for is a blissfulness. And blissfulness comes out of being loving. And then that discernment becomes very easy. But at the beginning, it is very difficult. That is why there is some guru teacher required.
Yes.
So in your heart, in yoga philosophy, in your heart is the seat of the soul. So the heart is the seat of the soul. And within your heart, you are in the Sanskrit word is called Atma. Atma means soul. Then there is also a second soul in your heart called Paramatma. Paramatma means super soul. Super soul is God, source, whatever you call God, Krishna, Christ, Allah, all of those are names of gods, right?
Yeah.
God is within your heart. So you and God are sitting together. And in his Paramatma form, God within your heart form, he is simply observing you. Just non-judgmentally, and just actually responding to your karma and desire. Right? That's it. Just responding to your giving you karmic and that just arranging it. The super soul is arranging it, because the super soul in me there's a super soul in you, and it's brought us together. That's how we attract each other. That's how we attract things and people into our life, is through the arrangement of the universal oneness. But we are all individual souls. So what ends up happening is that the world, the outside world, is trying to tell you what's important to you. Big companies, especially in this age, big companies are dominating the airwaves, or dominating the vibration, and they are pumping the vibration of the earth with, you need this and you need that, and you're not good enough. You're not good enough, buy my product. Right. If you're not beautiful enough, buy my product. You're not smart enough, buy my product. Now, some of these products are useful, and most of them are not, because they're coming with the intention or the underlying vibration. They don't have your best interest at heart. Right. But Paramatma, God always has your best interest at heart. God always wants what is best for you, just like any loving parent wants what's best for their children. So God wants what's best for his creation and his children, and you are directly a child of God. And so therefore, the more that you clean up or purify the body, putting natural foods into the body, taking up sadhana, whether it's yoga or some qigong or some meditation, right? Cleaning up the body, cleaning up the mind, then naturally you'll begin to hear Paramatma in your heart. And that's what's going to draw you or lead you to certain places. It's also what's going to protect you. No, don't go there. Yes, go there. The challenge is sometimes Paramatma will tell you to do things that go against your logic. Right. It goes against what you are perceiving as reality, because your mind is only thinking linearly. Right. 1 + 1 = 2. But actually, Paramatma, he made up math. He's the source of math. So he can also rearrange the equation for you. Yeah. This is what we call miracles. Miracles are when the equation is rearranged and we're like, whoa, how did that happen? But actually, God is rearranging the equation all the time, right? So when you fully surrender to your highest calling, your highest nature, your mathematical equations will become rearranged.
Right. And there's the simplicity right there.
That's right. Yeah. It's about trust. We don't trust.
Yeah. No, we don't.
It's not good enough to say, I believe. That's the start. That's a great start. You believe. If you're watching a show like this, you believe. Yeah. You have some belief. You're seeking. If not, you wouldn't watch a show like this. Paramatma also arranged for you to watch this show. So there's a reason you're watching this. Just nothing's coincidence, okay? So you should pay attention to everything in your life, okay? As your karma, this is part of your karma. You're taking action right now. Your action is to listen, to watch, to observe. So you have to be like, this is my karma, the action that you're taking. And by the arrangement of the super soul, this is what your action is. So this is good karma. Because this karma is very nice, because it is helping you elevate your consciousness. So therefore, this is a very good karma you're experiencing in this moment. So now what you want to do is continue in this train of karma, right? And be like, okay, what is the next good thing that is a positive thing for me to engage in? When this video is over, what action are you going to take? Maybe you have some more time to educate. So you check out some other shows, or this is positive scroll. Maybe you scroll more and check out some more healing. Maybe you come look at some of the things I'm offering. I don't know. What is karma telling you to do? Where are you being led? Now, you may also have the negative, or what I'll just call your negative karma might show up and go, hey, go now have that smoke. It's time for a smoke break, right? And look, if you're going to go have a smoke, at least thank Thank the Lord that he brought some relief of the smoke. Dovetail, that negative habit with God consciousness or divine consciousness, and he will begin to wean you off of that. Right?
Yeah.
The key is not to show hate to anything. The key is to show love, even to that which you wish to get rid of. Show love to it, and you will be empowered. Right? You will be empowered to have the strength to let it go if you sincerely are asking for it. Okay. So remember that God knows what's in your heart. So he knows the sincerity in your endeavor. You could fool the world, but you cannot fool God, because God is within you. So you can lie to the world. You can say, oh yes, I'm so spiritual. I'm living spiritual life. But you know where that is incongruent in your life. Right. And those are the parts to clean up. It's the work that nobody sees. That is the real work. And how do you do that work? Knowledge. You must acquire spiritual knowledge. That's it. And then act upon that. Bring that spiritual knowledge make it action. Spiritual life is very active life. It is not a disengaged life. If you find yourself disengaging from life, be conscious of that type of knowledge. It is probably material knowledge wrapped in a spiritual bow.
So what would you say about that part of the spiritual path where people kind of step back a little bit and they do kind of go within, and I don't know.
It's still action though. It's action, right? When they say they're stepping back, what they're doing is, I'm doing that right now. You could, in one hand, you could say that's always the paradox or the dualistic nature. The challenge is language, right? The challenge is always how, right? You can't just don't just listen to the words that I'm sharing here. Try to feel the vibration in which I am emanating.
Love that. Yes.
Right? This is spiritual vision. So the challenge is always in words. So here we have a paradox that will always play in. In one hand, this is in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna said this to Krishna. In one hand, you're telling me, be righteous and be loving. In another hand, you're telling me to fight this war, right? See, this is the paradox that we're all going to face. Yep. So in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the main book of study for Bhakti Yogis, right, Hare Krishnas, there's this paradox is addressed. Okay, so in one hand, I'm retracting and retreating right now. But what am I retracting and retreating? Well, I've making big changes in my life right now. I am disengaging from anything that is not an authentic expression of where I am to be at. So I'm retracting, but I'm not retracting into some void. I'm not just going to now sit around from my life. What I'm now doing is I'm engaging in things that are more spiritual activities. So what I'm doing is I'm actually moving away from my old businesses and moving into my spiritual life more. So what does that look like? It means, for me, it means less time on social media, more time fixing the building that I live in, because I'm turning the building that I live in into a spiritual Airbnb where people from near and far will be able to come and spend time and learn about yoga life and learn and actually live it with me, because I want to give people the emergence experience. That's why I like the name of your emergence. It's about emerging yourself.
Yeah.
And that's when you get the deepest and the quickest transformations. If you want it to happen, like if you're like, okay, how do I take the fast track? It's full emergence, right?
Yeah, go live with me.
Yeah, that's right. Go live, come live, right? Come, So we're setting this up to be a place of full emergence experience.
Yeah.
Right? So that you're fully associated in the highest consciousness that's available for you. Go seek the highest spiritual seekers, spiritual people that you know. And inside of you, they should make you somewhat uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
In a way, you'll find that they love you, and in the same time you'll find that you might find uncomfortability because they're going to ask you to do things that your ego isn't going to like.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's a sign of a good guru. People ask me all the time, how did you pick your path? I said, because it was the path that made me the most uncomfortable.
Exactly. I've always said that, even as a therapist. Like, I will hold compassion for you and kick you in the ass.
That's right. It's both. That's right. Yeah.
Move you forward.
Because I'm actually going to love you to the degree where I want what's best for you, not just what's going to make it easy for you.
Yes.
This is the secret. This is the key. So when someone says I'm retracting, that's discernment needs to be there. Like most people, self-love has become this like self-love. I'm doing self-love this weekend. I'm binge watching Netflix and drinking wine. I'm doing self-love. No, you're engaging in material pleasure. If you really want to do self-love this weekend, right? Distract from the wine and Netflix and go to yoga class.
I love
right?
That. Yes.
See, that's self-love is doing what is in the highest interest.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is very materially conscious people are teaching spiritual principles but all they're actually doing is entangling themselves and more people in more sense pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so they say, oh, well, do I have to give all these things up? All you have to do is engage in the sadhana, in the practice, and you yourself will come to your own point of realization of what you want to give up or not.
100%. Yes.
You just have to endeavor.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I know we only have about 10 minutes before you need to jump off. So what are the tools and the knowledge that you can impart to people or help people with if they were to come to you, if they were to reach out to you and say, hey, I think you're a really cool dude. I kind of want to be a rapper. It doesn't sound like you can help me with that. So
I can't. I wish I could, but I can't.
Yeah, you can't. But what are the things that you can, like, what would it look like if I reached out to you and said, hey, what are you about? What can we do? What do you offer? What can you offer me? Where would I get with you?
Cool. So I'm going to show you this little chart that I drew out, and I have a nicer chart made out in a graphic that I can, give people access to. But this chart is the 5 senses. Okay. So we have our senses. All right. And underneath the senses, we have the mind. Underneath the mind, we have intelligence. Intelligence is described here as the discernment factor. Quick example. I open up the fridge. I see chocolate cake. I see the apple. I already know what the right choice is, right? I already know. You don't need a health coach to know what the right choice is. That's intelligence. You have inherent intelligence.
Yeah. Right?
So the senses wants the chocolate cake. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's going for the instant gratification. It's going for the instant pleasure. Nothing wrong with the little chocolate cake. I had some Kit Kat cake last night. You see, I had some cake last night. Nothing wrong, right? I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to, right? I have a little bit of sweets. But the truth is that 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I'm choosing the apple. Mm-hmm. Okay? Right? So here's the deal. You go, well, what does it look like, Nick? How do I get what I really want in my life? And how do I become spiritually realized? There's only one way. There's many. It looks like there's many ways, but the essence is one, which is you must master the body and mind. Yeah. You must become a master of your body and mind, a master of your senses. So, how do you do that? By exercising intelligence. How do you exercise intelligence? It's the development of willpower. Willpower is your spiritual muscle. The stronger your willpower is developed, the more you will naturally go along with the intelligence. And once you realize that once you start to honor your intelligence, you will naturally realize well, I'm also not my intelligence because I can control my intelligence. So I must be something else. Ah, I am a pure awareness. I am the awareness that drives the intelligence, which drives the mind, which drives the senses. And once you realize that, you have liberation, you're liberated. And then from there, you can go, like, you can realize higher dimensions or realities. But I can take you, because once you're there, you'll just go, like, you'll be so realized that you'll go the rest. God will take the rest of the way. Right. So when you say, well, what does it look like? It looks like I'm teaching a process of mastering the senses through the yoga philosophy, through knowledge, meditation, practice, so that you can get your mind under control through the exercise of willpower. Once you have willpower, whatever you want, you'll be able to arrange your mind and body in such a way, your energies in such a way, that you'll be able to attract it into your life, the right people, the right circumstances and situations. Why? Because your energies will literally arrange to attract it. Nikola Tesla says, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of vibration, frequency, and attraction. So, but how do you become such a highly frequent? How do you attune your frequency? Your body is an antenna. And so you must purify the body, meaning you must tune the body like you would tune a guitar string.
Gotcha.
And as you tune the guitar string, the more in tune it is, the sweeter the sound. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you want something in your life, you have to figure out what that frequency is and attune it. And the way you do it is by mastering the body and mind through the exercise of intelligence. And naturally, through the exercise of intelligence, you'll become realized as awareness, and you will conquer the fear, the ultimate fear, which is the fear of death. And you will lose the attachment of the body. You will realize you are not the body. You won't just believe it. It won't just be a fluffy, oh, that sounds nice. You will realize it. You will know it. And once you know it, that's it. You know, you'll recognize higher relationship and intelligence with the divine. And so the way that I am doing that is I've started a community called the Happy Yogis community. And it's a series of, I put on weekly classes inside of the community. It's $20 a month to join the community. And you get weekly classes, and you also get access to a secret Facebook group where I create daily posts. You can ask questions. I just started this community, so we're brand new, but there's already 4 or 5 classes for you to engage in. And each class, like right now, I'm talking about each sense, and I'm giving you options on how to purify and master each sense. So starting with the ears, the nose, we're going to work with the tongue, with the eyes, with touch. And every week I'm going to be giving you spiritual teachings from yoga philosophy, so that you have proper knowledge, proper sadhana, and proper association, so you can master your life.
I love that. And that rings true for me, because I remember I went through a period where I was having a lot of migraines. And I remember tuning in when you were doing some video at one point. And, you know, one of the things, every time I would have a migraine coming on, I would do one of 2 things. I would either eat a piece of dark chocolate, which would stop it for some random reason, or I would take this medication that if I took it early enough, it would stop the migraine from coming on. And I remember you showing something in this video about going into a yoga pose, using your breath, using these natural resources we have within to clear and cleanse and be preventive about our health, and using our senses and our body, right, as a way to prevent this kind of thing from occurring. And that it's that choice again, right? Do I choose the apple or the cake? Do I choose dark chocolate, or do I choose to really use myself as this antenna and kind of curb those senses and use myself as the wisdom and the power that I have within me, you know? That's
right. The physical yoga postures, which is just one arm of yoga.
Right.
So what I'm teaching is the whole gamut, the philosophy, the whole spectrum. But I do use the physical postures in my own life because it really helps me on the physical level, stretching out the body, making sure that the energy channels are open, and that your posture and spine are aligned, right? So a lot of us, if we're sitting on computers all day, we're kind of hunched over, we're driving cars. So many of us have this kind of curve here, right? Well, one thing I've done this with audiences, I've done this with probably thousands of people at this point. I said, everybody show me confidence. I've done this with kids and I've done it with adults. And I'll always ask this question. I say, everybody show me confidence. And everybody universally does this.
Yep.
They sit up and they put their shoulders back. I said, great. So do you see that your physical body and the way you feel are interlinked?
Yes.
That you can change the way you feel just by the way you sit.
Love
so
that.
Some people say, oh, Nick, how do I attract a better relationship? How do I create more money? How do I, whatever you want, Well, first thing is begin to learn how to hold yourself in a certain way, in a certain posture. And this will begin to make you feel a certain way. And the way you feel is energy. Energy is emanating from you, and energy is magnetic. So it then begins to attract. So if you want to attract, let's say you want to attract a good relationship into your life, or you want to even help the relationships you're currently in become better, right? Learn to hold yourself in a different way.
Yeah.
See, yoga it's mystic only to the non-practitioners. People say, oh, you're a mystic. I'm like, well, okay, I mean, fine. But it's like, it's not really though, because once you see it's a science, to someone who doesn't know anything about flight, watching a plane is mystic. It's like, whoa, my goodness. Like there's literally a metal, like gigantic machine flying through the air that's mystic. But to the scientist who knows all the ins and outs of how it all works, it's not mystic, it's science, right? It's very scientific. Yoga is very scientific. So to the non-initiated, to people who are just watching but not understanding, they're like, well, this is mysticism, right? But actually, it's just the way you work. Yoga is about connecting with the divine. Yoga means union. And to connect with the divine, you have to know how you work, because you are part and parcel of the divine. So the more you know how your body works and how your psychology works and how your spirit is interacting with matter and moving matter, how your consciousness is creating in interaction with the divine, the super soul. Once you understand this, there's no mysticism about it. You'll know how to create the life. You'll be able to arrange yourself in such a way, and you have a unique expression. There is nothing that is scarce. There is no competition in this world. You just have to arrange yourself back to your natural self, and all the natural beauty, abundance, intelligence, all will be yours, because it's waiting for you. It's only waiting for you to attune your guitar, yourself again, right?
So to learn how to attune your guitar and your antenna of your physical body, please reach out to Nick. Can you put your contact information of where they can find your group or where they can contact you? So
Yes.
that all the questions they can reach out.
Yeah, I will leave, if it's okay, I'll leave a couple links below. My YouTube channel. I just started my YouTube channel. All of this, you guys are, kind of you would be the early adopters if you decide to move forward in any way. But I will leave links to my YouTube channel. On my YouTube channel, you can get a link to my Facebook page, as well as a link to my Patreon account. And how you join the Happy Yogis community is by becoming a patron. So you have a $5 a month option or a $20 a month option to join me inside the Happy Yogis community and learn this process of mastering body and mind.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. It's always so inspiring. And thank you everyone who joined us. Have an awesome Monday. Bye.